Hello, everyone. We have some great news today. Meghan Markle is nervous about the fact that William's Parliament's decision deprives Archie and Lilibet of their titles. The mystery of mysterious numbers. The rewritten story of Meghan Markle, which is being hidden from us. Meghan posted a new photo when it became known about Andrew's deprivation of titles and then deleted it. While Meghan is handing out gifts, the first one has already gone, or why is the sun going out over Montecito? All this is waiting for us ahead, but for now, to begin with, Meghan Markle is nervous about the fact that William's Parliament's decision deprives Archie and Lilibet of their titles. Well, my dears, are you going to have a heart-to-heart whisper? Sit back, because today we are discussing not just rumors, but the very nuances that will shake even the thickest walls of the palace. So let's start with our future king, Prince William. You know, I'll tell you this, his angelic patience seems to have come to an end. For years, he watched the monarchy being turned into a soap opera, leaks, candid interviews, family dramas all over the world. And what about William? He was silent, smiling, and patient. But my good ones, there is a limit to everything. They whispered that his composure has cracked behind the gilded gates. And it happened at the moment when he realized that the reputation of the crown was not being threatened from the outside. She's bleeding from the inside out. They say he directly told the advisors, enough of indulging emotions. And in the language of the palace, this means no more second chances. For him, protecting the institution means restoring order, even if it means cutting off his own brother. Those close to the future king claim that he has reached the point of no return. He had seen the chaos, heard the ridicule, and was tired of watching the crown look weak. This is not revenge, dear ones, it's a matter of survival. And in William's understanding, survival sometimes requires drawing a sword. And of course, we have some insider information. It is rumored that quiet negotiations are already underway, those that will never get into the official protocols. Allegedly, William's inner circle is coordinating with trusted lawyers a strategy that could permanently reshape the royal map. We are talking about some kind of parliamentary alignment, a step that will allow the future monarch to deprive or revise the royal status without political obstacles. They say it's not just about Harry and Meghan. The point is to build a modern monarchy without ballast. One insider put it perfectly, it's surgically accurate, not scandalous. The focus, of course, is on two names, Archie and Lilibet. William's supporters reasonably point out, if children are not brought up in the spirit of royal duty, then what kind of titles are these? Just symbols without service. Supposedly, this new parliamentary approach will allow these symbols to be removed cleanly and legally when William puts on the crown. This is a revolution disguised as a reform. And here, my dears, the most interesting thing begins. The real power to change titles does not come from Parliament, but from something much older, royal patents. It is a kind of secret weapon of the monarchy. With one update, the monarch can rewrite the bloodline map, just as an artist can erase a name from a canvas. And rumor has it that William's lawyers have already drafted amendments. Proposed change. Titles will belong only to working family members and direct heirs. This means that anyone living off-duty, even royal children growing up abroad, can lose their status overnight. No courts, disputes, or appeals. Elegant, definitive, and absolutely legal. The hidden sword of monarchy is unsheathed. And that's where the whispers turn into ahs. Because if this decree is signed, the royal names Archie and Lilibet may disappear like the morning mist. For Meghan, it's not just the loss of a title. This is the loss of the foundation of her entire post-royal identity. In the meantime, we will learn the intriguing details about the proposed changes for the titles of the royal family. I remind you that there is great news ahead. The air became thick inside Buckingham Palace. King Charles and Prince William, once united by duty, now stand on opposite sides of a gilded corridor. Charles, an eternal father and diplomat, still hopes for peace, believes that bridges can be restored with tea, letters, and forgiveness. But William, he's run out of patience and empathy. They say there were not just polite disagreements between them, but sharp silences and tense meetings. At one point, Charles allegedly asked William to remember Mercy, to which William is said to have replied, "Mercy brought us here." While Charles wants to heal the family, William looks at Parliament, which is waiting for action. And our heir seems to have found inspiration from Queen Margrethe of Denmark, who stripped her grandchildren of their titles. William is rumored to have admired this move, calling it bold, clean, and necessary. This became his model. The modern monarchy is smaller, sharper, more disciplined. And now fast forward to sunny California. In Montecito, Meghan Markle built an empire on charm and one golden word, Duchess. All her projects revolve around this title. But as soon as the rumors about William's reform leaked out, panic allegedly set in. Her team, they say, has urgently called emergency meetings. The only question is, what happens if he's gone? Without the royal sparkle, Meghan's brand loses its appeal. Rumor has it that she even tried to bargain for the name Duchess of Sussex, but William allegedly provided for this by blocking the commercial use of the titles. From Meghan, whose identity was built around that name, the ground is slipping away from under her feet. The tension reached a peak. They say Prince Harry made a desperate call to his father, not as a duke but as a son, begging for a lifeline. But according to rumors, the line was silent. Charles didn't answer. That silence meant everything to Harry. The monarchy moved on. In Montecito, the calls have subsided and there are fewer invitations. Brands are waiting. Insiders paint a picture of the crisis, urgent meetings, legal consultations, but the damage seems to have already been done. Hollywood values relevance, and Meghan's brand has begun to resemble yesterday's sensation. Meanwhile, the sun is rising over Buckingham Palace in London. There is a strange calmness inside. For the first time in many years, there is order. William, becoming a reformer, drew a line between his family and the crown. The public no longer sees him as a soft-spoken prince, but as a leader who acts. Some will call it cruelty, others necessity. And here is the main question that is in the air, my dear gossips. If the Duchess does not become, then who will Meghan become? And now we come to the main news for today. But the next news is also no less wonderful, so watch to the end. The mystery of the mysterious numbers. The rewritten story of Meghan Markle, which is being hidden from us. My dear ones, surely you have heard this whisper in the corridors of social events. Everyone is discussing one thing that it's not customary to talk about out loud. Age is just a number, isn't it? But my dears, in the case of our heroine, Meghan Markle, this number seems to have been very persistently rewritten. You won't believe it, but royal biographer Tom Bower, the one who digs deeper than any archaeologist, hints that Meghan's official biography is not just a story with missing chapters. This is probably a completely different book with a completely different year of publication. And we know how much they like to hide their secrets, and we love digging them up. After all, Meghan built her brand on the ability to transform. Hollywood's sweetest heart, oh, those fairy tales, rebellious royalty. A global humanitarian worker? I'm sorry, what? And a self-made survivalist? But here's a plot twist that no one expected. Her birth year may be the main acting role in her career. It all started with a dusty copy of 17 magazine from 1997. There, in one mention, our Meghan appears as a 21-year-old student. Just think about it. If this is true, then simple calculations say that in 2025, she will be about 50, and not 44 at all as we are told. How can you make such a mistake about your own age, pray tell? And this tiny digital correction rewrites everything from her first samples to the chronology of the royal tale. But wait, it gets more interesting. Her own dad, Thomas Markle, once mentioned that his memories of her childhood did not match the official version. Hollywood agents even whisper that she shaved off a few years to fit in with local standards. And the palace? He's as silent as a partisan. Because once you start doubting Meghan's chronology, every photo, every milestone, every carefully choreographed smile starts to look too perfect. So, my dears, buckle up. In the next few minutes, we'll dive into the biggest royal edit since the Crown series. This is not gossip. This is a crime scene. And in the end, you will be tormented by a single question. If Meghan Markle's age is not what she claims, then what else is untrue? Do you think Meghan really edited her biography, or is this just another media attack? Share your thoughts in the comments, dear ones. And if you think, what's the difference? Oh, there's a difference. Her age could also affect her ability to have children. If Meghan is 4 years older than we thought, then her story of a quick pregnancy is much harder to believe. Every mystery has its own clue. For Meghan Markle, it was not an official memo from the palace, but a glossy page of that very teen magazine. The same number 17, with a photo of a young Meghan and the caption, 21 years old. Sounds innocent, right? Until you realize that in 1997, according to official data, she should have been only 16. That single printed number turned the internet into a crime lab. And this ridiculous story about how they met, the whole story is a complete inaccuracy, to put it politely. According to the magazine, Meghan was born not in 1981, but closer to 1975. And when she went to her first auditions, she wasn't a rising star in her 20s, but a woman approaching 30. In Hollywood, age is not a number, it's a currency. Every extra year is a lost role. So there are rumors that Meghan's team decided to rewrite the time. Not an outright lie, just a creative edit for a script called Youth and Ambition. And the funny thing is, this article has never been refuted. She just disappeared. The numbers have mysteriously disappeared from online archives, as if someone really wanted to erase this detail before royal attention was paid to it. But then everything spreads even more. Her father claims that he remembers her as a 20-year-old long before that magazine even came out. And if he's right, history doesn't just bend, it breaks. So something doesn't add up here. Something's wrong. Let's be honest, Thomas Markle is not the palace's favorite person. But even his critics admit that he may have evidence. Old photos, school questionnaires, things that quietly hint that Meghan may have lived a few extra years before her debut as a fresh-faced actress. And here's a twist that no one expected. Not to mention the stories about hysterectomy that her relatives told. But that would have made conception even more difficult, because Meghan would have been closer to 50. The neighbors on her old street in Los Angeles are all saying the same thing. One even told the tabloid, she was always older than she said. We didn't care. She was ambitious. This phrase became the spark for the age scandal. If her own father and former neighbors are hinting that her timeline is fake, then what else in her royal tale was edited for the cameras? If Meghan Markle had superpowers before marrying the prince, it wasn't charisma, but rebranding. Somehow, she convinced Hollywood that she was a fresh new face, while, according to some reports, she had already blown out the candles on the cake in honor of her 30th birthday. She claims that she was 13 when she started working at Humphrey Yogurt, despite the fact that the company itself stated that it had never hired 13-year-olds. Let's face it, Hollywood treats age like a loaded weapon. Actresses lose roles not because of bad auditions, but because of the wrong date of birth. So when several years magically disappeared from Meghan's resume, insiders say it wasn't a mistake, but a strategy. By the time force majeure made her famous, she was not a graduate with big dreams, but an experienced player who finally got her long-awaited close-up. And here's the juiciest part. Old biographies and agencies and actor databases reportedly showed conflicting ages. And then they disappeared, edited just before her affair with the prince became public. A coincidence or a well-planned digital cleansing of inconvenient arithmetic? Meghan wasn't just playing by Hollywood rules, she beat them and then applied the same strategy right at Buckingham Palace. When Meghan Markle entered royal life, the world thought she had left Hollywood behind. But in fact, she took all the PR tools with her. And suddenly, even the palace stopped understanding where the truth was and what had been edited to keep its image clean. And here's what's getting weird. Her official chronicle, the one on the Buckingham Palace website, has begun to quietly change. Old biographies were disappearing, references to age were erased. And researchers digging into her early charity work and old resumes found inconsistencies that could have been traveled in a royal carriage. Tom Bower didn't stand on ceremony here either. He called Meghan's official story a polished production with missing scenes. Translation: someone rewrote the script, and without Buckingham's approval. But the most delicious thing is that while the palace was honing the art of silence, it could not defeat the internet. Every deleted archive, every edited dossier leaves behind breadcrumbs. And we, the royal detectives, walk through these crumbs straight to Meghan's PR machine. Every fairy tale should have a perfect ending. For Meghan, that end was Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor, the baby who was supposed to seal her royal happily ever after. But Archie's birth story doesn't read like a medical record, but like a Netflix script, polished by PR people. According to the palace, everything was perfect. But behind the velvet curtains, Tom Bower and some hospital staff whispered a version more like House of Cards. They wondered how Meghan had endured 2 epidurals, an incredibly quick delivery, and was discharged from the strict maternity ward on the same day. And then there were photos of Meghan in heels smiling on the steps of the palace just 2 days later. If every minute of your pregnancy is choreographed for the cameras, people start wondering who the director of this show is. And the questions didn't end there. Secrecy around birth certificates, disappearance of medical details. If this was the most joyful event in decades, why was it surrounded by such secrecy, as if it were a military operation? Maybe it's not just about privacy. Maybe it's about controlling image, time, and, yes, the very age that binds everything together. When the royal story doesn't match the facts, you don't rewrite the facts, but the story. And Meghan has once again proved that she is the best editor in the business. By the time Meghan crossed the Atlantic, she was marrying more than just a prince. She was going beyond a marketing opportunity. Since the engagement, her Hollywood instincts have been awakened. It wasn't about tiaras, but about trademarks. Insiders call this the Markle method. Turn every piece of news, good or bad, into a plot twist. Criticism becomes courage. Mistakes are caused by misunderstanding. And silence is a strategic pause for empathy. Even that Oprah interview didn't look like a confession, but like a content strategy. Meghan did not give an interview. She was relaunching the brand. But the more she polished the image, the more cracks appeared from under it. The internet didn't buy the saint's image. When every gesture looks rehearsed, authenticity evaporates. Meghan didn't just leave the monarchy, she monetized it. The Duchess became a startup, and the product was herself. But when you build an empire on editing, there is one rule that cannot be circumvented. Sooner or later, the viewer will want to see the unedited version. When the dust settles on Meghan Markle's rewritten chronicle, one truth will remain unshakable. The palace did not hush up her story. She wrote it herself. A PR genius or the greatest manipulator of our time? Speak out. Who believes her version? Every missing year, every polished piece of news, every mistake that somehow worked in her favor paint the same picture. Meghan did not live a royal romance, she produced it. And like any Hollywood production, it had takes, editing, and an ending that always left it at the top. The palace is silent, the press is divided, the public is hooked. After all, even after all the controversies, she remains the most talked about woman to ever leave Windsor Castle. But silence doesn't mean the truth. It just means that someone is still writing the next chapter. And if Tom Bower's revelations are at least half true, then Meghan's royal tale isn't just built on cracks. It is built on a foundation of fiction. So, my dear ones, don't stop there. The rabbit hole is much deeper. If you thought that an age-related secret was everything, you can't even imagine what she's hiding about her family. Prepare for a turn that has stunned even Harry himself. Because on this channel, we don't chase headlines. We uncover stories that are afraid to print. Subscribe, click on the bell, and join our investigation. After all, when it comes to Meghan Markle, every truth sounds like conspiracy theory. Until it turns out to be. Meghan posted a new photo when it became known that Andrew had been stripped of his titles, and then deleted it. When the news broke on the evening of October 30 that her husband's uncle had lost the title of prince, Meghan Markle, perhaps in joy, posted a photo on her account in which she was smiling broadly. It's not hard to guess what. However, for some unknown reason, this photo was immediately deleted. Loyal fans of Meghan suggested that the publication was simply planned in advance, but it was quickly cancelled when Buckingham Palace released its statement so that it would not be considered inappropriate. Or perhaps someone just reminded her that it was she and Harry who had no reason to be happy in this particular case, because a prince by blood could be stripped of everything he had. In fact, with a stroke of the royal pen. You can also easily remove all mentions of the former prince from the royal website. As, for example, it happened with the former Prince Andrew. And here, you need to run not to social networks, but to book tickets for the next flight to London. Some commentators suggest that this is exactly what Harry did. After all, begging his father to forgive and not repeat what he did to Andrew is the most pressing task of the Dukes of Sussex at the moment. Recall that on the evening of October 30, Buckingham Palace confirmed that Andrew would no longer be called Prince, but would henceforth be known simply as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. The palace said in a statement that the censure is considered necessary amid the ongoing scandal surrounding Epstein, with whom Andrew lied about severing ties, and also said that he would leave the royal box in Windsor after 20 years of living there. Historian Andrew Loney has previously reported on the strained relationship between Andrew, his nephew, and his wife, claiming that he told Harry that his and Meghan's marriage would not last more than a month, and then accused him of not doing due diligence regarding Meghan's past. Andrew is also said to have called Meghan an opportunist and claimed that she, being 3 years older than her husband, was too old for Harry. While Andrew is trying to cope with his changed status, Meghan probably has a busy schedule of social media posts planned in the coming weeks, following the release of her brand's first Christmas collection, which she recently unveiled. But according to some commentators, in this situation, it would be better for her to forget about social media altogether, at least for a while. While Meghan is handing out gifts, has the first one already gone? Or why is the sun going out over Montecito? Now the question is not if, but when. Maureen Callahan, American columnist and blogger. Of the American-Canadian bloggers specializing in CS, Maureen is one of those who usually does not spare dukes and does not tolerate Meghan Markle's pranks. For example, she often talks about Prince Harry and his annoying wife, emphasizing as a rule that Meghan is too much. And in the situation of Prince Andrew's deposition, she believes, Andrew is more like a pawn removed by William to clear the way for his real target, Harry. Maureen is sure that for William, the decision on his uncle will be the starting point. The path to the Sussexes is ready. We would clarify, not to the Sussexes, but against them.
Many of those who have been following the disgraced royal family of Britain, watching their antics for the past 5 years, wonder why the couple is tolerated, allowing too much. As events now show, they dealt with other issues there, or rather, other people. In particular, King Charles made it clear that Andrew's case always implied the need for further action, and his outcome was never in doubt with his older brother, but was only a matter of time, due to legal and constitutional difficulties. And this is not so far from the truth, given the specifics of the Anglo-Saxon legal tradition. A precedent is needed for drastic decisions. Although, to be precise, there was more than one. In 1919, the Privy Council of Great Britain, the one that did not give Harry protection, stripped Charles Edward, the grandson of Queen Victoria, the son of her youngest offspring, of the title of Duke of Albany for supporting Germany in the First World War. But the list has only just begun with him. This is followed by 3 more Lichenettes, but almost all of them became such for their ties with the Germans in the 2 world wars. Andrew, of course, has a slightly different story, but maybe only at first glance. And the Giuffres case is just an excuse for the cop to push the inconvenient Duke away. Note that people in Britain become deprived of titles, in fact, for unnecessary external relations, and not for uncomfortable relationships with ladies, let's just say. Although the accents are set differently at the beginning of the 21st century, a story like Giuffre's case is not the only one of its kind. But we have already written that not only this thread, but also many others can be pulled out of the tangle of contradictions of the prince, who can no longer be called that. And they will all be connected, that's right, with foreign policy matters. Relations with Libya during the time of M. Gaddafi, the oligarchic elite of Kazakhstan, the not-quite-white gemstone trading market of the Middle East, as well as, partially according to rumors, with some fragments of Chinese intelligence. All this, presumably, had more weight for the decisions of the elder brother to get Andrew out of harm's way. And if he began to push him off the radar of the public life of the royal family, then the king is aware that anything else and a little more can come to the surface. And it's more difficult with Harry here. For example, many Sussex's fanatics believe that Meghan and Harry were treated excessively harshly in the Constitutional Court, and it's unfair. They say, look at Andrew, he doesn't care, and the Dukes of Sussex are God's lambs and didn't stand next to him. And you'll see how they were treated. And then there is Meghan-style nonsense, racism, and a bunch of other isms that she had to endure. In general, the point is that there is simply nothing to deprive them of. And Harry is not his uncle. Look at how well he's done. He's wiped his feet. He's fighting and fighting for the safety of children on the internet. He pleases as much as he can. He doesn't have time to think about himself.
And Meghan, just look at the Duchess. She is engaged in business. She earns money herself. And why should she suffer? Innocence itself. But there are some conclusions to be drawn from the situation with Andrew. Firstly, Carl's policy is to sit and wait. He said himself that he was never going to just leave the issue of reputational costs to the crown. And all he needed was time. But it's not just time, apparently. There are also facts that are indisputable to the public. Giuffre's memoirs, court decisions, etc. Some Britons believe that this is a clear victory for the media. And we would add that the media simply acted as the deciding factor that pushed the last domino not in his favor. They created so much noise that they completely covered up the real reason for Andrew's move to Norfolk or somewhere else there. And for these reasons, he will be there. But not for any other reason, as this very public is sure. Secondly, who says that Harry won't be the same? The king is often accused of being soft towards the younger. They say, "Father, what's the big deal?" And what had he done? Yes, he said a lot, but that's all. But to be very objective, no one in the public knows exactly how their departure from London went, and why it actually happened. After all, a lot of, let's say, interesting things are served up in the gossip format. Yachts, children, photos of a sleeping princess, a convoy by the Countess of Wessex to the plane.
And the Meghan project itself also raises questions. We ourselves have repeatedly dug out a lot of details about how she came to the attention of the royals in the first place. But they still look unrealistic for such a sudden takeoff. I don't know who. Personally, we have the following. It was as if the cop had just pushed them out of sight until something showed up. That's right, she pushed them so that they wouldn't show off. But they shine, and very persistently. And they're definitely not going to sit quietly. But we need them not to flash, so that what's really hanging on them doesn't get out. But what? Well, for example, that all the rumors are not rumors. It was easier with Andrew. The precedent of the Duke of Albany and 3 other losers was precisely related to foreign policy impurity. This became the basis for the Andrew case. But for Harry what? He didn't do anything wrong. How to view? One can, for example, recall the ambiguous reputation of his African charity within the framework of Parks of Africa. Or you can, for example, dig deeper their connections with Oprah, who is not so innocent in the framework of the girls' school she founded in the same Africa. What kind of connections? Oprah doesn't really communicate with the lady after the interview. Well, maybe not very directly, but she keeps it close. She has already provided a platform for the Radiant twice. For an interview with E. Chang, and at the recent presentation of Kay Adamo's book, The Radiant also shone. And both meetings took place at the Godmothers, the Mother of All America bookstore. And Doria's recent outing with Oprah. You wrote that Doria herself is called and invited regardless of her daughter. But why? How can Doria be interesting to these people in general? They are absolutely on their own wavelength, where Doria definitely doesn't drift. Besides, what about Archewell? What is this Sussex Charitable Foundation really doing? What was there in the days of the Paz Dinamii? Has the fund purchased 50,000 vaccines? But, although any foundation is amazing, and you can find a lot of interesting things there. It's not for nothing that Meghan was eager to have her own separate foundation when they were offered to carry out their projects through existing royal funds in the Constitutional Court. She still roared her own. The Queen agreed, but she offered her supervisors, people with experience in this field.
They say the Duchess screamed in response and kicked her feet on the royal parquet floor, saying, "My Serene Highness, no, and categorical." 2 months ago, there were rumors that William had given instructions to find a precedent for the removal of ducal titles. Then they said it had to do with Andrew. Only for him, there was a ready-made one from 1919. So why does he need a precedent? Miss Callahan believes William's role is to try to create something sustainable, and if Charles can't handle this task, then the door is already ajar anyway. Once Andrew is finally resolved, where will people look next? To the west, we hope, to Montecito. And this is the main mistake of the Sussexes. They were allowed to leave, and the property was bought according to their requests, as long as they stayed quiet. But this was not part of their plans, and it is not included in their plans. And maybe William is not looking for a precedent at all, but what they have actually managed to mess up in the last 5 years. There are not enough brains in the Duchy of Montecito even for 2. Therefore, perhaps this task is solved a little easier than it seems at first glance. But they haven't pushed the last domino yet. Of course, these are just rumors, and no one